everyone, this is Vaishali Siddhappa and welcome to my channel Complemental Economics. And today's topic, effects of an autonomous change in aggregate demand on income and output. So this is a question, explain the effects of an autonomous change in aggregate demand on income and output. This is one of the 6-mark question according to your PDF file. First of all, to understand this, again we have to talk about consumption and investment. Let's talk about the consumption. How consumption can be changed? Consumption can be changed because of change in C. It's a capital C, so that means it is a autonomous change, autonomous consumption. Change in C, C bar, it talks about autonomous consumption, the consumption which is not dependent on income. Change in C again, but it is smaller c, that means it is a induced consumption, the consumption which is completely dependent on income. Because of that also consumption will change. The next one, why investment is going to change? The investment doesn't change only because of income. Other factors are there which influences the investment. The first thing which influences the investment, that is availability of credit. How much credit is available, whether credit is available or not. If the credit is available very easily, so that means investment is going to increase. If the credit is not available, the investment will be less. On the other side, one more thing which influences the investment, that is rate of interest rate. Rate of interest. If the interest rate is high, so people think twice, thrice before taking any loan. So if the interest rate is more, we'll not take it. If the interest rate is less, we'll try to take more and more investment. So this is the way how availability of credit and interest rate change the investment. So now you have a diagram. So in the diagram we are going to talk about how exactly it makes a difference. So if you understand this particular diagram, so only that is more than enough for this particular question. So you have this is the x-axis which I mentioned y. So this is the y-axis. Y-axis we have mentioned aggregate demand. Y is nothing but the income what we have. So in this case, the first the curve which I will talk about, that is aggregate supply curve. So you can see here aggregate supply curve which I have mentioned. This is the aggregate supply curve. Why it is aggregate supply curve? Because it is 45 degree. So if you really want to understand this particular question, what you have to do is you have to see my all 4 to 5 videos on this chapter, because all the lines, curve what we have in this particular topic, it is all related to the 5 other videos, previous videos of mine. Please watch it, otherwise you will not get the link to understand this particular question. So the aggregate supply curve, it is always on a 45 degrees. So on the other case, let's talk about one more curve, that is aggregate demand curve. This is the curve, the green line you can see here. AD1 A bar plus CY. A bar is nothing but it expresses autonomous. So autonomous, you have two things here. One is the C bar, another one is the I bar. C bar and I bar both combiningly they have taken as autonomous, plus induced income, because induced we have only in the consumption. So induced consumption, so that we express through the CY. So the green line what you have here, so that is aggregate demand curve. So let's talk about one of the assumption what we are going to see here. We'll come back to the diagram again. The first situation, let's take it as C is equal to 40 plus 0.8y. This is the autonomous consumption. This is the induced consumption. Investment, take it as 10. And the total equilibrium income you consider 250. In case the investment is going to increase, you have to assume that in case the investment is going to increase, what will be the situation in it? So see the next line. If the investment increases to how much? To 20. Now I will be equal to 20. So in this case equilibrium will be 300. So if the only investment is going to change, So how come the equilibrium, consumption, expenditure, everything will be changed? That we are going to see with the last diagram. So now the previous diagram what we had, so I came here. So now this particular diagram you can see this one, the green one. So as I told you, it is the aggregate demand curve what we have. So now just imagine this is the previous equilibrium, the first equilibrium, the aggregate supply curve and the aggregate demand curve which is on the green line, they both intersected. So when both are going to intersect, that's called as an equilibrium point. Exactly my previous video, it is about aggregate supply and aggregate demand when they're going to equal at any of the point, that's called as a equilibrium. So here aggregate supply and the aggregate demand, they both are equal at this particular point. When they both are equal, we got the equilibrium, it's called E1. So now just imagine the investment got increased. As I told you just 2-3 minutes before, the investment is going to increase now. So now in this case the investment is going to increase. The investment is going to increase. In that case, this line, can you see the purple line? So that we got it when investment got increased. It is autonomous too. This is autonomous A, this is autonomous too, because investment is also autonomous. So we never discussed about induced investment. We always talked about autonomous investment. So it is autonomous. So we got the new aggregate demand curve which is AD2. The AD2, so we got the new autonomous which is A bar 2 plus CY. So when investment got increased 10 to 20, the aggregate demand also shifted to the upward. So you can see the new aggregate demand curve which is the purple line, we got this particular. So now the aggregate demand shifted towards the upward. So now let's see what are the changes we're going to see in this. Now when we got the new aggregate demand which is this particular purple line, again aggregate supply is going to intersect with the new aggregate demand curve which is at this point. You can see the investment got changed. Here you can see this. The investment got changed. Change in investment from where? From E1 to F. So from J to E2. So now the investment got increased. So because of that, aggregate demand shifted to the upward, and again aggregate supply and the aggregate demand which is 2, aggregate demand 2, they both are going to intersect at this point. When they both are going to again intersect each other, when the aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand in this point, again we got the new equilibrium point. The new equilibrium point is E2. So now we have to see how income is changed, how other things got changed. So now when the investment got increased, when at the first investment got increased, you can see this is the Y, even it is called as a GDP also, if you remember. Now for the first investment, this was the Y1, E1 was the thing, Y1 and the E1 was the income, so yeah, output. So now instead of Y1, E1, we got Y1F. See, instead of Y1 star and E1, we got Y1 and the F. Which one is the greater? Y1F is the greater than the Y1 E1. So in this case, what got increased is EF is the change. E1F got increased. E1F got increased. See, what is the change from here to here? What is the change? The new change is this. The new change will be this. After this, when we shifted to the upward, again you have to see here, the aggregate demand increased how much? E1G. You can see the aggregate demand increased E1 to G. The aggregate demand is increased to E1 to G, which is equal to E2G. Can you see? E to G. See, they both are equal. This and this, they both are equal. So in this, if you compare the before one, E1F, the E1 and the F, at the same time E2 and J, this is greater. After the investment, the E1G and E2G is greater than the E1F and the E1J. So this way, why it really happened? So this slide you can see, we got the new AD2. So the explanation what I have done, exactly the same explanation you have it here also. I have discussed about E1F, I have discussed about the 45-degree line, new intersected, the new equilibrium what we have got. So now everything I have discussed, the only one thing which is left, that is multiplier. What is the meaning of multiplier? In the through this diagram, what we have understood is, whenever in the initial when we start the business, initially if the investment is greater, that is going to multiply everything. So that is going to multiply the equilibrium, that is going to multiply the value. So at the beginning always we say that the investment should be greater. If the investment is more, definitely that is going to multiply so many times the value of the investment. So that's it. It's quite complicated to understand the diagram. You have to see 2 to 3 times to understand this. So thank you so much. I hope you understood this. Please subscribe and share. Thank you.